Well, hello, my bright friends, the few of you who watch this on the radar stuff. Today I've got, well, there's a ton of things going on. Uh, you know, Basically, the world, the great game, this struggle for power and resources and control of resources and all that is a dark psychology, is run by dark psychology people who use manipulation and dark psychology forces, propaganda, mind control, cult behavior, and so on to control people's opinions and actions and beliefs and all that kind of stuff. And all of us are vulnerable to it. Also, we just have to survive. So we fit in and we do what we got to do to get through the day and pay the rent and all that kind of stuff. So it's very hard for us to keep up with all of it. But if you really should take this journey of looking into dark psychology. There's a lot of stuff on the internet about it. Psych Central has a bunch of articles about it. They talk about gaslighting and backstabbing and triangulation, exploitation, guilt tripping, reverse psychology, love bombing, nagging, who uses dark psychology, abusers, criminals, people with personality disorders, those with neurotic traits, and so on. And there's a ton of links and research. But there's lots of books. I have one link. I'll try to find it. It's on another machine, but it has 5 books on dark psychology. And recently I listened to another one on audio that was pretty interesting. It's always good to remind yourself how people manipulate people so that you can, get through the day and defend yourself from being manipulated in dark ways. Uh, so I watched the interview with Donald Trump, and he didn't say anything. And the lies are amazing. He's so funny because he'll say something like, "Well, the sun rises in the east, but some people say it doesn't rise in the east. It could be rising from some other direction. It just depends on what you think east is, but it is the east. I'm pretty sure it's the east, but we have to find out. We have to look into it. We have to look into everything." So it's like flat Earth, whatever. They were talking about vaccines and whatnot. The interviewer kept correcting him, and so he vilified her, saying she's not fair, and the hardball questions, which are so tough. Actually, they're not, but he doesn't want to face any facts. He has his narrative, his hot button issues. So it's immigration, immigration. The world's coming to an end. They're flooding across the borders and all that kind of stuff. You're familiar with it. I won't go into it, but that was interesting anyway. The world is run by liars, and lies are normal now. Nobody cares. I've seen, the Syria things in the news. I've seen a lot of, been following that since 2011. Um, there's a lot of information out there about it. I've read a couple books on the region, and you know, what are you going to say about it? It's just, the machinations of the great game. The United States is powerful and its allies, and they want people to do certain things. They advocate for Israel and so on. It's the energy, it's the this and that. These aren't conspiracies, it's just the way the game is played and has always been played. And we're in an energy crisis. We're running out of the energy we need. And so there's another really good article I looked at. So the Honest Sorcerer, he talks about Europe's downward spiral accelerates. And this is all tied to energy. We used to have a lot of cheap energy inflows from Russia, and that's gone. And so the workarounds are more expensive. Europe is deindustrializing. People just can't afford to buy stuff anymore. It's a problem. That's a really good article. Everything's intertwined, interrelated. Then another one on population, the coming population collapse, which is this Ugo Bardi who talks about this Seneca effect. Um, he's pretty good on this subject, and yeah, the population will collapse eventually. And then another population thing, the population balance podcast. Um, there's a really good conversation, progressive pathways for a smaller population, with two very interesting people, Hannah Evans and Pam Wasserman, and it's very it's a deep dive into the subject. It talks about the integral nature of population. It's interesting. It should be obvious to people, but every human being is a consumer, right? We're in overshoot. Overshoot is a thing because we live in a finite world, a world with limited resources. But we're also in an accelerationist world. And if you're a capitalist or a libertarian capitalist or an anarcho capitalist or whatever you are, you want to play the game now and get everything you can now. And you discount the value of future population, which is fine. You go for it, play the game. And we're all part of it because we're consumers. And, every single human being on the planet has a carbon footprint. So the more people there are, the more carbon footprint we're going to have, more oil and gas and coal and everything that we need. It's interesting, people blame China for everything. Well, for decades, China was manufacturing all this stuff for American consumers. That's why they needed to burn a lot of coal. Because they were doing business with the world, and the world wanted to do business with them, and corporations wanted to take advantage of things that they could have in China, tax-wise and labor arbitrage and other things. A good, human resource base, all that kind of thing. So, but it benefited U.S. consumers. U.S. consumers by far have the biggest carbon footprint. And maybe you don't care about that, but it's a thing. And, Europe is in a pickle now, and it's not going to get any better. There's just no way out of this. There may be dips. The graph may go down and up a little bit over the next 10 years, but ultimately it's going down. And it's very complicated to electrify everything. You need to spend a lot of oil and gas and coal to manufacture the infrastructure needed to electrify everything. It's complicated. It has to be done on an international basis. And of course, we're still in this war zone, the fifth generation warfare, and it's being waged across the world. And it's all about the great game, as you know from watching my thing. It's my obsession. But there are tons of people out there talking about it who know the subject very, very well. You have Libya, Gaddafi goes. I wrote a piece on my blog called "Another Dictator Falls. The Great Game is Rough. America has no permanent friends or enemies, only interests," Henry Kissinger. And it's just about Erdogan. He's just another player who's playing nice with the empire, with the United States and its allies. He also has things to gain in the region. I'm not going to go into the details, but anyway, he wants to stay in power, just like Bibi wants to stay in power, just like, Trump wants power and all that kind of thing. All the players want to stay in the game and they want to win. So that's what's going on here. And you get rid of Gaddafi, you have a failed state in Libya. Libya used to be the wealthiest nation in North Africa. You get rid of Saddam Hussein and Iraq fails, and then you get ISIS. ISIS didn't go away, it still exists. Al-Qaeda didn't go away, it still exists. So now that the strong man is out of Syria, it's to Israel's advantage, of course, and that's the whole point. And so who's going to, fill the vacuum of power? We'll find out. Everybody celebrates, they tear down the statues every time. And there's this euphoria as one faction, wins, quote unquote. And then it all turns to shit. So when the Al Qaeda members start fighting the ISIS members and all the different groups in the region start going after each other again, you have a failed state. Plus, there's nobody that's going to invest in rebuilding Syria. Iran's not going to do it. Turkey's not going to do it. U.S. and its allies aren't going to do it. So it's just going to be a mess. And from 2011, we remember what happened to Europe, all these Syrian refugees coming across that really changed everything in Europe. That wave of immigration from the Arab Spring and from the conflict in the Middle East. That's not going away. That's only going to get worse. So it's going to be a mess there for a long, long time. Nothing's going to get any better. Of course, Biden's happy, and the cronies in the neoliberal, neocon great game side, they're all happy because there's no more port for Russia in Syria. Russia's out. Uh, some people made a good point that why didn't Iran and Russia do more to protect Assad's regime, to feed the army, the national army? They just got tired and started starving and just quit. So anyway, you don't like dictators, I get that, but I don't like the great game. And I hate the players and I hate the game because it's an ugly game and it's a destructive game. And at the end, over the next years, the next months, the next days, it's only going to get worse for everybody on Earth. So nobody's going to benefit from this competition between nation states. And we can't figure it out. We just don't have the mental capacity, critical thinking skills, or the desire to figure it out. We really want to just go to the UFC and chant USA, USA, USA and have a nice time, which, okay, fine. Go out there and make money and buy stuff. It's going to be rough, and I think these articles are interesting. I have another piece in my blog that I put up, which is more about what happened to wisdom traditions and whatnot. So that one's called Tools for Health, Peace, and Liberation, What Happened to Ancient Wisdom. I just talk about how modernity evolved. I'm not anti-science. I'm not anti-religion. I'm not anti any of that stuff. In and of themselves, energy, oil, all of it is not evil or bad. It's how we use it. So obviously, if we're wise and enlightened about how we live in the world, we will use all of these materials and ideas in a better way. So I talk about questions in that article. I talk about language as being a tool, how a language evolved just a little bit. It's just cursory, but trying to weave together a few narratives that can help us make sense of how we got here. So there's quotes in there. I talk about sin and so on, big gods, and Buddhism. I talk about wabi-sabi because I lived in Japan for 10 years and I really felt it when I lived there. The culture is profound and beautiful, and I really enjoyed my time in Japan. So, samsara, liberation, what is that? And I, give a nod to Massimo Pigliucci and Stoicism, 52 Exercises for Cultivating a Good Life, Live Like a Stoic. It's a good book. All of these traditions have something to offer, right? And if you understand them, you can get something out of them that's very positive and beautiful. So I talk about the age of discovery and enlightenment, the whole journey of modernity, Fordlandia, Henry Ford, all these people that were pivotal players during the journey of modernity. Again, I have a shout out for Walter Lippmann. Everyone needs to read that. That's dark psychology stuff again. And Material World, that book from Lippmann. And I give a shout out to the Venus Project, even though that's not perfect either, But like I say, the genies aren't going back in the bottle. The technology's here. What we have to do is learn how to use it in the right way so that we don't destroy uh, nature to the point where it destroys our ability to live here. And, transhumanism and all that, okay, that's a thing. That's for billionaires, have your genetically engineered babies and think about living in underground bunkers in Mars, and little crypto states and whatnot. That's not for you, my friend. You're just going to get crushed. Nobody in this tech bro clique with Elon Musk gives a damn about the price of eggs. So don't think you're going to get cheaper eggs because Donald Trump gets inaugurated. Um, yeah, it's a long article, but there's a lot of outlines in it that you can skip through. And at the end, I just talk about despite everything, uh, we still have the capacity to feel bliss and love and curiosity, to learn, to grow, to have friendships, to appreciate nature and everything else, which is pretty wonderful, actually. So the potential is there for us to have a better world if we wanted it, but we'd have to do something about that. I think the next big piece I'm going to write is about how we just don't have the desire to be revolutionaries anymore. Um, we're not going to sacrifice to change anything. So we're all accelerationists. We're going to double down on the great game, and we're going to let the players play until there's a huge crash. And then there will be this catastrophic population crash for multiple reasons. And after that, the people left will just figure stuff out. So hopefully you and yours will have a nice life. Maybe they'll make plastic lawnmowers in Arkansas again or something. You can get all of your tennis shoes made in Carolina or whatever, and you'll be happy. You'll keep the immigrants out and all that stuff. I just doubt that's going to happen. Plus, the energy crisis is a real thing, and it's crucial. And Nate Hagans talks a lot about how we don't factor in a lot of things when we think about energy and finance and all that stuff. I don't think he even goes far enough in my book, but I'm not here to compete with people who are smarter than I am and have different backgrounds, more expert, skin in the game, who have been publishing for a long time and doing things. Sometimes I think that, the more you learn, you see things more clearly. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm totally powerless. So I'm like begging the world to come up with Soma, the brave new world. Please give me my Soma so I can kind of lobotomize myself and forget everything I've learned and go back to being a simple person who just wants to have a fun time today and make money and show people I have a better car than you and my girlfriend's nicer and whatever the heck. Compete for attention and status and be happy for every little win I have when I get over on somebody using my dark psychology techniques and win, I get a little bit of this, a little bit of that from you, and I get over on you, and isn't that great? And we can celebrate and whatnot. So go ahead and look at that. Mark Cibola, he's worth listening to on the Syria things. Got some good guests, but there's so many people that really know a lot about Syria. If you're getting your information from the TV, you might as well go back and watch reruns of Libya and the Shah of Iran and any number of, great game takeovers that have happened, and look at the failed states. Just remember what happened to Iraq if you want to. But maybe you weren't interested when it happened. So maybe this is the first thing, or you don't even pay attention to it. I know a lot of people who look at the news and say, now I know why I don't look at the news. What do I care? Which is fine. I really don't mind that perspective. I think it could be good for your mental health. I was reading something where they were saying that people like me, who are generally happy and positive and never get depressed, it's easy for us to look at all this stuff because it's not going to bother us that much. We're just curious about it and interested in it. But for a lot of people, they're more sensitive to these kinds of things and they don't want to go there. It just hurts. It's uncomfortable. It's depressing. And so I don't blame people if they don't want to look at it. It's like, forget about it. I've read enough books. I'm not going to read another one as long as I live. It's like it's sitcoms forever for me until the day I die. And 1970s and 80s music, or whatever your era is. Um, I'm just going to enjoy myself. And if you don't have soma, which you can take every day and just lobotomize yourself, yeah, you still got alcohol and marijuana and whatever the heck your thing is. And you can kind of, zone out. Plus, we still have bread and circuses, but that's going away year by year. It's not going to be any better than it was today. I just don't see the big upswing where we all get really excited like in the 90s about everything. Technology is all great and, the internet, democracy. Uh, the mask is off the West. We know the great game is all they care about, the players. There's almost 10 million people in the United States employed by the security systems. NSA, CIA, Pentagon, Army, Air Force, Navy, blah, blah, blah. And then if you add all of the companies that support the security state, the permanent war, that's another, 10 million people at least. So you're looking at a huge employer. That's a lot of groupthink. That's a lot of motivated reasoning. That's a lot of malincentives. So if you're in that world, um, you're in that world, and everything that supports it, whether it's energy, whether it's technology companies, whether it's Amazon or Facebook or Google, we're all involved with it one way or another. And as an American, we're involved in it because a lot of the benefits from uh, deep state machinations and the great game players comes back to us. We get our NFL games and we get whatever the heck you're into that you like so much, uh, whatever barbecue system you have on your deck, or whatever kind of cool swimming pool you have, or whatever cars you have, or the things you like. We benefit from it because we're looting the world of resources. And that's the way we are. And it goes to us. And then in our country, in the United States, we just have to keep the game going so that the money flows uphill, flows up to the wealthiest people. Capital on capital returns. And these people get richer and richer. And we kind of hang in there and they give us, Trump's going to get rid of health care and um, Social Security, all those entitlements, they're going away. And you voted for it, you know, uh, one way or another, you sit on your hands and let it all happen. So when things get really, really tough, we only have ourselves to blame, unfortunately. Um, and at some point, we will become so tired of it and frustrated that bad things are going to happen. People are shooting executives in the back on the street, right out in the open. That's stochastic terrorism. It may not have been a really well organized hit, but it happened. These things happen. And when they become organized and on a greater scale, or when there's a cascade, when it becomes a fashion to do this, it's going to be a nightmare. Think of all the private security companies out there. You better be rich because you're going to have to pay your army and feed them, whether it's in crypto or whatever you're paying them with. And they better be able to go buy a pizza and a car with it. When you don't feed your army, they just fade away and disappear, like happened in Syria. The Greater Israel Project's going to happen. Unfortunately, I don't think there's anything that's going to stop the United States and its allies in Israel from, annexing Syria and Lebanon and, Egypt and Turkey and Jordan, they're just standing by and helping out because you get to stay in power if you play along with the big dog. Uncle Sam's the boss, let's face it. That's just the fact. And it doesn't bother you any until the refugees start showing up in your town, and then you're freaked out about it. So yeah, the right wing thing is going to continue, unabated. So go check out those articles. I will put a link in the description of this podcast with a post on my website. I got to drive traffic to me now. Me. I got to compete. On my website, I can look at the, analytics, but I got to have like subscribers on Substack and stuff, to validate my work and make sure I'm relevant and important and so on. Use some dark psychology, use some marketing, use some PR. Monetize this damn thing. No, I'm not going to do that. But anyway, here I am sharing again. So take good care. Have a nice week. Happy Monday. Bulliam T out.